You were not born to doubt yourself. That idea, self-doubt, was introduced to you not by the nature of who you are, what are you going to do with it, but by the systems and structures that slowly shaped your sense of identity. It was handed to you through whispers of criticism. What are you going to do with it? Through invisible measurements of worth, through institutions that taught you to look outside yourself for validation. What are you going to do with it? But I would like you to pause here just for a moment and remember that before you learn to second guess your abilities, before you were taught to fit into someone else's mold, you were already enough. You were already whole. Every child begins with wonder, with curiosity, with an innate belief that anything is possible. You never questioned whether you could walk. You tried, you fell, you stood again. What are you going to do with it? There was no inner voice saying, you can. That voice came later. It came through comparison, through judgment, through repetition of failure without our guidance. And the danger lies in mistaking those external influences for internal truths. They are not. What are you going to do with it? They are echoes of a system that profits from your insecurity and thrives when you doubt your own intelligence, your own value, your own strength. What are you going to do? But here is a truth that must be remembered. Self-belief is not a luxury. It is a necessity. It is not an arrogant stance or a loud declaration of superiority. It is a quiet and steady awareness that you are capable of growth, of understanding. What are you going to do with it? Of change. And that capacity is not given to a chosen few. It is part of your nature as a conscious thinking being. What are you going to do with it? To doubt that is to disconnect from what makes you human. Look at the structures that surround you, the economies, the education systems, what the social hierarchies. Many of them are built on the assumption that you do not know enough, that you must follow. What are you going to do with it? That you must seek expertise outside of yourself before you can make sense of the world. But the truth is, every system that has ever shaped humanity, language, science, justice, freedom, began with an individual who dared to believe in their own insight. What are you going to do with it, even when the world did not yet understand it? You are no different. The potential for revolutionary thought exists in you, not because someone allowed it. What are you going to do with it? Because you are born with it. The reason belief in yourself matters is not for personal success or applause. To do with it, it matters because when you believe in your own thinking, when you trust your process of inquiry, when you begin to take your ideas seriously, what you reclaim something powerful, autonomy. And from that place of autonomy, new possibilities open. You stop asking for permission to exist fully. What are you going to do with it? You stop waiting for approval before acting on what you know is right. You begin to move with integrity, not imitation. What are you going to do with it? This doesn't mean you won't face failure. In fact, belief in yourself makes you more aware of failure, not less. But you view it differently. You stop seeing it as a verdict and start seeing it as part of a deeper process of growth. Belief doesn't erase difficulty, but it gives difficulty a new meaning. It transforms obstacles from reasons to quit into reasons to refine, to examine, to persevere. You see, this belief is not built in a day. It is forged slowly, sometimes painfully, in the small moments of courage that no one else sees. It is born in silence. What are you going to do with it? In solitude, when you choose to keep learning even when there's no reward. What are you grow stronger every time you resist the voice that tells you're not enough? What are you going to do with it? That voice may never disappear completely, but belief gives you the strength to override it again and again. What are you going to do with it? So I invite you to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. I invite you to turn inward, not to isolate. What are you going to do with it? But to connect more deeply with the mind that is already equipped to question, to analyze, to imagine. That mind is yours. It always was. What are you going to do with it? And if you can begin to listen to that part of yourself, not the noise, not the fear, but the quiet, what are you going to do with it? Steady presence beneath it. Then you will realize something essential. You don't need permission to be powerful. What do you only need to remember? That you always were. What your mind is the architect of your reality. That may sound like a poetic phrase, but it is, but in fact, a truth grounded in both observation and experience. What are you going to do with it? Everything you perceive, every joy, every struggle, every decision passes first through the filter of your consciousness. What are you going to do when the way you interpret the world, the meanings you assign to events, to people, to yourself, shapes the very nature of your reality? What are you going to do with it? We do not simply respond to what happens. We respond to what we believe is happening. That distinction is not small. It is foundational. What are you going to do with it? When someone says they feel trapped, powerless, or lost, what they are often experiencing is not just a situational problem, but a mental framework that has been shaped over time. A framework that keeps repeating itself, reinforcing the same thoughts, the same habits, the same fears. And this framework, though invisible, becomes as real as any wall, any prison. We tend to think of chains as physical. What are you going to do with it? But the strongest chains are the ones we place on ourselves through unquestioned beliefs. Ask yourself, how many yogoni thoughts do you repeat each day without ever examining where they came from? What or how many times have you accepted limitations simply because they were familiar? What are you going to do? I can't. I'm not ready. It's too late. These aren't facts. They're inherited phrases absorbed from the environment. What are you going to do with it? From authority, from a society that conditions you to expect less from yourself. And when you internalize those patterns, what they become a self-fulfilling prophecy. You build a mental cage and then convince yourself the door is locked, when in truth, it was never locked at all. The mind is not static. It is adaptable. It learns through use. And just as it can be shaped by doubt and fear, it can also be reshaped by clarity, by discipline, by deliberate awareness. You are not bound to think the way you've always thought. You can redesign your mental architecture. What are you going to do with it? But it takes effort. It takes a willingness to question your most comfortable thoughts. That's not easy. What are you going to do? Because the mind resists uncertainty. It clings to the known, even when the no causes suffering. But here's something essential to grasp. What are you going to do with it? Belief doesn't just follow evidence. It creates it. When you begin to believe in your capacity, you behave differently. You speak differently. What you interpret challenges as temporary, not permanent. And from that shift, you start to notice different opportunities. Make different choices. What are you going to gradually? You build a different life. Not because the world changed on its own, but because your lens changed. Your perception changed. And through that, your actions changed. People often talk about changing their lives, but few talk about changing their minds. Yet the two are inseparable. What the world you live in, the relationships you have, the work you do, these are all extensions of what your mind allows you to see and accept. What are you going to do with it? A person who believes they are unworthy will walk past an open door and never step through it. Not because the opportunity wasn't real, but because they couldn't see themselves as someone who deserved to enter. There is a responsibility that comes with this realization. What are you going to do with it? Because once you understand that your mind is shaping your reality, you can no longer blame everything on circumstances. What you are not a passive observer in life. You are a participant, a builder, a contributor. This doesn't mean you control everything. That would be Narvi. But it does mean that you have far more influence than you've been taught to believe. What are you going to do with it? There is great power in pausing to examine your thoughts, to sit quietly, not in search of distraction, but in search of truth. What are you going to do with it? Have you accepted as inevitable that might be questioned? What assumptions are you carrying about yourself, about others, about the future? What are you going to do with it? What might be dismantled? When you begin to reflect in this way, you awaken a kind of freedom that no one else can give you, because it comes from within. What you're going to dependent on status, wealth, or recognition, it is a freedom rooted in awareness, in the ability to rebuild the inner structures that determine how you see, how you act, how you live. This is not theory. It is practice. What are you have the ability to reshape your inner world? And in doing so, you begin to alter your outer world. Not through force, but through clarity. What are you going to do with it? Denial, but through recognition. And that is where transformation truly begins. Because once you see that the most powerful force in your life is the way you think, you begin to think differently. Not someday, not when it's convenient, but now. Most people spend their lives waiting for permission, for clarity, for the perfect moment, for some external proof that it's finally safe to begin. They tell themselves, once I'm sure, once I know for certain I can succeed, then I'll act. But this way of thinking is not rooted in reason. It's rooted in fear. The truth is, you don't need proof to believe in yourself. What are you going to do with it? What you need is courage, because belief isn't something that shows up A after you succeed. It's what must exist A before you ever do. What are you going to? Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward despite fear's presence. And that's what belief demands of you. What you're going to do with it. Not blind optimism, but a quiet conviction, a willingness to act without guarantees, a willingness to say, I may not know how this will unfold, but I trust that I will learn, adapt, and grow. That's where real strength comes from. Not from certainty, but from a mindset that embraces uncertainty without being paralyzed by it. We live in a world that has conditioned us to think in terms of results. What are you going to do with it? In terms of outcomes, we can measure and compare. And because of this, many people refuse to act until they've collected all the data, until they've consulted every possible source, until they feel that everything has aligned perfectly. But life does not offer perfect conditions. What are you going? It offers windows, small fleeting windows, where we must decide whether we'll leap or stay put. Courage is what gets you through that window. The belief is what gets you to the edge in the first place. When you require proof before you act, you hand your power to the world around you. You become reactive, always dependent on some signal, some validation, some nod of approval. And the danger in this is clear if the signal never comes. What are you going to do? Action. Entire lives are postponed, dreams deferred, simply because the person holding them waited too long for something that only exists you after the leap is made. And let's be honest, most of the time, what are you going to do with it? The proof we're waiting for doesn't even come from reality. It comes from our imagination of how others might respond. What are you going to do with it? What if I fail and they see me? What if I try and it doesn't work? But the real question is, what if you never try at all? What are you going to do with it? What if you never discover what you're capable of because you let doubt disguise itself as wisdom? Playing it safe often looks intelligent from a distance, but over time, it becomes a slow surrender of your potential. There is no one path to certainty. What there is only the path you make by walking. And the first steps, especially the early ones, will feel shaky. That's not a sign of inadequacy. What it's a sign that you're alive, that you're stepping into territory you haven't yet mastered. And isn't that the essence of learning? What are you going to do with it? Every great thinker, innovator, every voice that changed the world began with a moment of uncertainty. The difference is, what are you going to do with it? They didn't wait to be proven right before they began and then let the process shape them. Courage doesn't announce itself loudly. It shows up quietly in small choices, in speaking when your voice trembles, in taking the first step before you can see the second, in standing up when sitting down would be easier. And over time, these small acts of courage accumulate. They form the foundation of belief. You don't build belief by thinking harder. You build it by doing, by confronting your fears and continuing anyway. What are you going to do with it? There's a kind of freedom that comes when you stop needing certainty. When you stop waiting for someone else to tell you what you already sense inside. What are you going to? It is a freedom that reclaims time, that says, this is my life. What are you going to do with it? And I will not delay it for a perfect moment that may never come. That's not recklessness. That's responsibility. Because no one else can live your life for you. No one else can take the steps that only you are meant to take. What are you going to do with it? And once you realize that the only thing standing between you and your next step is your insistence on knowing the outcome, a quiet shift begins. What are you going to do with it? You stop hesitating, you start creating, and you begin to see what's always been true. Belief doesn't wait for permission. It moves, it builds, it transforms, one act of courage at a time. One of the greatest disruptions to self-belief is the habit of comparison. What are you going to do with it? We are constantly exposed to fragments of other people's lives. Snapshots of success, images of perfection. What are you going to do with it? Stories of achievement. And somewhere along the way, we start measuring ourselves against them. What are you going to do? We forget that what we're seeing is not the full reality, but a selective presentation. And yet we treat those fragments as standards. What are you going to do with it? As evidence that we're falling behind, not doing enough, or worse, that we're not enough. This tendency to compare seems almost instinctive. What are you going to do? It is not inevitable. It is learned, reinforced by environments that reward uniformity over individuality, speed over depth, and visibility over substance. But your journey, your process, your growth, they are not meant to resemble anyone else's. What are you going to do with it? They're not supposed to follow the same timeline or reach the same destinations. To believe in yourself is to reclaim that truth. It's to recognize that your path is sacred, not because it is grand, not because it is praised, but because it is yours. Think for a moment though. What are you going to do with it? How much energy have you lost chasing someone else's definition of success? What are you going to do with it? How many moments of joy were muted because they didn't look like someone else's achievement? What are you going to do? The world around you will constantly try to tell you who you should be, how fast you should move, what milestones you should reach. But real growth doesn't follow a schedule. It unfolds in its own time, often invisibly, quietly, in ways no algorithm or applause can detect. What are you believing in yourself requires that you disconnect from the noise long enough to hear your own rhythm again. It's not easy. What are you going to do with it? We've been conditioned to evaluate our progress through external metrics, income, titles, followers, recognition. What are you going to do with it? But what if your real value lies not can be measured, but in what you continue to build? Internally, silently, persistently. What if the most meaningful transformations happen away from the spotlight? We often speak of confidence as something that is seen, expressed, celebrated. What are you going to do with it? But deeper confidence, the kind that cannot be shaken, comes from knowing that you are aligned with your own direction. What are you going to do with it? Even when that direction looks different from others, that kind of confidence doesn't compete, it doesn't rush, it doesn't need to prove. It just moves steadily, intentionally, without needing to imitate. The moment you begin to honor your journey as valid, regardless of pace or appearance, you start to reclaim your mental space. You no longer need to scroll through someone else's highlight reel just to determine your own worth. What are you going to do with it? You begin to realize that someone else's progress does not diminish yours. Their light does not dim yours. And their timeline has nothing to do with your path. This is not a race. It's not even a competition. It's a process of unfolding, unique, complex. What are you deeply personal? That doesn't mean you isolate yourself from others. It means you learn to engage with the world without losing yourself in it. What are you going to do with it? You can celebrate someone else's success without questioning your own. You can admire someone's gifts without diminishing your own. What are you going to do with it? That's maturity, not needing to be loudest in the room to know that your voice matters. Comparison at its core comes from fear that we are behind, that we are not seen, that we are not significant. But belief quiets that fear. It doesn't erase it. What are you going to do with it? It reminds you that you are on your own timeline, that your pace is not a reflection of failure. Whatever you but of the particular lessons you are here to learn. And those lessons, no matter how small they may seem now, what are you going to do with it will shape you in ways that only time will reveal. The irony is the more you lean into your own journey, the more others are drawn to it. What are not because you're trying to impress, but because authenticity resonates. What are you going to do with it? Because there is something powerful about a person who walks their path without apology, who trusts the process even when the results are not yet visible. So if you find yourself comparing, pause, breathe, return to yourself. Ask, what am I building right that no one sees? What am you going to do with it? Am I learning that cannot be posted or praised, but matters deeply to who I'm becoming? Those are the real markers of growth. Those are the invisible victories that shape a meaningful life. And in the end, it's not how quickly you reach the destination that will matter. It's how deeply you walked your own road with your eyes open, your mind aware, and your steps true. Failure is often treated as the end of the road, a verdict, a label, a permanent mark of inadequacy. But this perception is not only misguided, it's profoundly damaging. Failure, in reality, is a necessary condition of learning. It is not the opposite of belief. What are you going to do with it? It is the very fuel that strengthens it. Every time you fail, you're being asked a quiet but powerful question. Do you still believe in yourself? What are you going to do with it? Even now, or in our current culture, we are conditioned to value the polished outcome over the messy process. Success is highlighted, posted, and you're going to applaud it, while failure is hidden, sanitized, or dismissed altogether. But this creates a false narrative, because the truth is anyone who has ever accomplished something meaningful has failed, often, repeatedly, and sometimes very publicly. They have experienced rejection. What are you going to do with it? Made errors in judgment, encountered resistance, but they kept going, not because they were confident in the outcome. What are you going to do with it? But because they remained committed to the process. That's what belief looks like when tested. What makes failure powerful is not the fall itself, but the choice to rise again, smarter, stronger, more aware. Failure gives you feedback. It strips away illusion. It forces you to confront your limits. What are you going to do with it? And then shows you how to expand them. You cannot grow in comfort. You cannot evolve if you're only willing to engage with what confirms your strengths. What are you going to? Growth comes from friction, from discomfort, from facing situations that reveal what you still need to learn. This is why belief is not passive. It is not something you simply declare in the mirror each morning. It is active. It is proven through your response to adversity. What are you going to fail and decide to try again? Not with blind repetition, but with refined strategy, deeper insight. What are you going to do with it? Greater humility, that is when belief becomes real. It is no longer a concept. It is lived experience. But many people misinterpret failure. They see it as evidence of personal deficiency. I failed. Therefore, I'm a failure. But this is a distortion. Failure is not an identity. What are you going to do with it? It's an event, a moment, and moments are meant to pass. You are allowed to stumble. You are allowed to doubt. But you must not stay down. What are you going to do? Because every failure carries within it the potential to teach you more than success ever could, if you're willing to listen. Ask yourself, what are you? Where did the failure happen? Was it in the planning, in the execution, in expectation? Each answer reveals something. Each answer is an opening. But to see that, you must step back from shame. Shame is the emotion that tells you to hide, to give up, to pretend. It has no use in the learning process. What are you going to need instead is reflection, a willingness to examine without self-condemnation. And that examination leads to resilience. What you begin to see that your value is not dependent on whether things go perfectly. Your worth is not reduced by the outcome of a single attempt. In fact, it is often through failure that your belief becomes unshakable because it's no longer dependent on circumstances. It becomes internalized, quiet, steady, unaffected by temporary setbacks. Over time, your relationship with failure changes. You stop fearing it. What are you begin to expect it? Not in a pessimistic sense, but in a realistic one. What are you begin to understand that failure is not only part of the process. It is the process. You stop avoiding difficulty and start engaging with it. What do you do with it? And in doing so, you build something stronger than confidence. You build trust in yourself, in your ability to adapt, in your capacity to endure. What are you? That kind of trust cannot be given to you. It cannot be taught through words alone. It must be earned through action. What are you going to? Through falling and rising and falling again. And that's why belief is a practice, not an idea, not a slogan, but a discipline. What you're going to choice you make each time the outcome is uncertain. Each time the voice of doubt grows louder. Each time the world says, you can't. And you decided quietly to try anyway. So if you failed, good. It means you're in motion. What are you good? It means you're engaged in something that matters. Let that failure teach you, shape you, guide you, but never let it define you. Because belief, what are your belief, is not proven when everything goes right. What are you going to do with it? It is revealed in those moments when everything seems to fall apart and you still choose to move forward. What are you? People often think belief is something you feel, something spontaneous, emotional, even magical. But in truth, what are you going to? Believe in yourself is not primarily a feeling. It is a practice, a repeated conscious act. What are you going to acquire? Discipline that happens in the everyday choices you make long before the feelings ever show up. What this misunderstanding is why so many people never begin. They wait to feel confident before they take action. They wait to feel ready, motivated, sure. What are you? But feelings are unreliable indicators. They shift with sleep, with mood, with external events. If you rely on them to determine your course, you'll spend your life hesitating, waiting, drifting. But when belief becomes a practice, something you do, regardless of how you feel in the moment, it begins to build something deeper than emotion. It builds stability. It builds character. And over time, what are you going to do with it? It transforms who you are, not by accident, but by design. Think about it. You don't become strong by lifting a heavy weight once. What are you going to do with it? You become strong by returning and again to the discomfort of resistance. You grow not because it feels good, but because you persist. What are you going to do with it? Your belief works the same way. You cultivate through repeated acts of integrity, through showing up for yourself when no one else is, watching. What are you going to do with it? Through small decisions that align with your value goals, your future self. Even when the present version of you is full of doubt. There's something powerful about deciding to act as if you believe, even on the days you don't feel it. That decision is not delusion. It is discipline. It is the understanding that confidence is a result of action, not the cause of it. You step forward first, and the belief catches up. What are you going to do with it? Each time you follow through on a commitment, no matter how small, you reinforce a messaging. What do you can trust myself? That's how belief is built. Not through one grand moment of epiphany. What but through the daily evidence that you're capable of meeting life with attention, effort, and honesty. With it, you build belief through the practice of showing up when it's hard, when it's unclear, when it's inconvenient. Of course, there will be setbacks. What are you going to do with it? There will be days when your energy is low, your motivation is gone, when every voice in your head tells you to quit. That's where practice matters most. What are you going to do with it? Because belief that only works easy isn't belief. It's convenience. Real belief endures through fatigue, through silence. What are you going to do with it? Or through uncertainty? Not because it feels good, but because it is rooted in something stronger than momentary emotion. It is rooted in intention. What are you going to do with it? And this practice doesn't need to be grand. It can be as simple as starting what you said you would start. What are you going to do with it? As consistent as completing the task you promised yourself you'd finish. As quiet as 5 minutes of focus when your mind wants to wander. These small moments, insignificant on their own, become powerful when repeated. They form the architecture of belief, not flashy, but solid. What are you going to do with it? You may not notice the change immediately. In fact, it often happens without fanfare. One day you respond to a challenge with calm instead of panic. You speak up in staying silent. You take the first step without needing reassurance. And you're realizing you didn't wait for belief. What are you practiced? You built it. And now it carries you. There's a quiet dignity in that process. What are you going to do with it? Because belief earned through practice doesn't need to be declared. It speaks through how you move, how you think, how you recover. It becomes part of you, not something you perform, but something you embody. So if you're waiting to feel ready, don't. Begin where you are. What are you going to do with it? With whatever strength you have, build belief through effort, through discipline, through the repeated act of not giving up. And over time, what are you going to do with it? That practice will become your foundation, not because it was easy, but because you did it anyway. Every single day.